Okay, I know YouTube is completely oversaturated with Scream videos right now. Everyone's got some kind of Scream video on their horror channels, whether it's the top 10 Ghostface moments or the best Ghostface.
I
And
can't take anymore. I'm feeling woozy here.
since I just brought the channel back, I had to at least get one more Scream video in there, since most of my content is Halloween. Before we get into that video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you know every time I post a new video. So I think the first choice we have is if the Screamcast were to remain in New York City. They're in college now. If we're remaining on this 1 year at a time timeline, like in Scream 5, they were in high school. Scream 6, they're in the first year of college, is exactly 1 year later. If Scream 7 were to take place 1 year later and there's no time jump, they'd be in the second year of college. That's not to say that they couldn't transfer someone somewhere else, but it's just an option. I think there's more to offer in New York City. It's a huge city, and I don't see them going to another city like Chicago or anything like that. LA, like, you know what I mean? Like, moving from one city to another doesn't really change the dynamic. So I think it's an option that they could stay there and continue that story arc. But at the same time, they may want to get away from that environment and try to run from Ghostface again, which is typically what happens in these Scream movies, right? They move around. And then you've got the option for them to go back to Woodsboro. And I think as much as people probably don't want to see them go back to Woodsboro, because I know it gets old, at the same time, you got to think Woodsboro is a part of the Scream storyline. Like, it's almost a character in Scream. And when you look at most horror franchises, it's hard to pull the franchise away from its normal location, right? When you look at Halloween, you've got Haddonfield, right? Most of the movies take place in Haddonfield. When they did try to pull away from that, which was in H2O, where Laurie Strode goes and becomes the headmistress at a high school in LA. Myers follows her there, but by the time we get to Halloween Resurrection, one movie later, we're back in Haddonfield again, and it doesn't work. Same thing with Jason X. They tried to shoot him into space. We ended up back at Crystal Lake. It just, no matter what franchise you look at, it just doesn't work when you really pull them away from the town where it all started. Which is why I think Scream 4 and 5 ended up back in Woodsboro. You can't take that character or the city, which to me is part of the cast. You can't really take it out of the franchise. It just doesn't work. So I think going back to Woodsboro is a possibility. And I think that ultimately, by the time we wrap up this entire franchise, I think we're gonna find out that the town of Woodsboro did play a major role in the whole thing, not just the characters that are tied to Sydney or tied to Sam or so on. I think the actual town is gonna serve a bigger purpose by the time we hit that last movie. I think the third option, which could be interesting, is if they were to go overseas. At this point, maybe Sam and Tara decide we need to completely run from Ghostface. We need to get as far away from Ghostface as possible. So maybe they decide to transfer and go to college abroad. They end up in London or Italy or just somewhere as far away as possible, even Japan. And it would be interesting to see if Ghostface followed them all the way to another country. And I think, just like the town of Woodsboro, I think wherever they end up, that place is going to have to play a role in the story overall. Like, New York City was great, and it added for a different atmosphere. It added for some different attacks, like the train scene and things like that. The big city environment helped. But I don't think the city itself played a role. Where if they were to go to London, I think something would have to tie the story into London if that's where they were to go. When you look at the new storyline with Sam and Tara starting from Scream 5, it seems that they're following the original blueprint from the first trilogy, right? So part 5 took place in Woodsboro. Part 6, they're in college in New York, where in part 2, they were in college, Windsor College, which was like South Carolina, something like that. Part 3 took place in Hollywood for the filming of Stab. So, some would say logically this is going to follow that blueprint and they'll end up in Hollywood. But I think in typical Scream fashion, they're going to break the horror movie rules and they're going to do something completely different. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Would you want to see Scream go abroad? Would you want to see it go back to Woodsboro, remain in New York City? What do you have in mind? Where would you like to see Part 7 take place?